I'm Graham Mann, and this is Gangland, Scotland Exposed. Right now, if you listen to the official line, the gang war on the streets of Scotland is over. According to Chief Constable Jo Farrell, the violent and bloody feud that erupted across the Central Belt has effectively come to an end. She pointed to a resolution of differences between rival crime crews following a major police crackdown known as Operation Portaledge.
So we're actively investigating a series of incidents of serious criminality. We think it's rival groups targeting each other. It's imperative that we identify and bring to justice those that are responsible.
The numbers behind that operation are significant. Police have responded to almost 100 separate incidents, resulting in around 70 arrests, several lengthy jail terms, the execution of 55 warrants and the recovery of 7 firearms and other menacing weapons. But conversations within Underworld insiders, former law enforcement officials and sources operating within the Scottish prison system reveal a more complex reality. And talk on the street is not that a lasting peace has been brokered, but rather that a temporary ceasefire is in effect amid claims in some quarters it's linked to disruptions to the global narcotics supply chain. Here we take a closer look at the mechanics of this so-called truce, the historical grievances that threaten to break it, and how the conflict has quietly shifted from the streets of Glasgow and Edinburgh into the country's overcrowded prison network. To understand why some sworn enemies in the Scottish underworld could currently be cooperating, we have to look far beyond our own borders. Sources have claimed that the catalyst for this sudden de-escalation is partly connected to the supply of cocaine and heroin entering the UK. Crime groups rely on international supply lines, and right now, those lines, some say, are compromised. There are well-documented issues with cocaine shipments originating from Colombian cartels affecting the wholesale availability for European dealers. Simultaneously, the global heroin supply has been disrupted due to ongoing conflict and instability in Iran. Some say this has caused a chain reaction, forcing some underworld players to work together. In the organised crime business, cash flow dictates behaviour. The current truce, some say, is not built on forgiveness. It's a pragmatic business arrangement. As one source bluntly stated, cash is king. Any truce is simply down to business. Whatever the reasons for the apparent truce, the history suggests violence will return. To understand the fragility of this peace, it's worth again reminding ourselves as to how the recent wave of violence began. The origins lie in a £500,000 cocaine deal that went wrong. Sources suggest members of a crew linked to jailed Edinburgh kingpin Mark Richardson used fake counterfeit cash to pay for the consignment, triggering a fierce response from Ross Miami McGill, a 32-year-old former Rangers ultra. McGill's associates, the Tamo Junto mob, initiated a campaign of retaliation. The first major public incident occurred when a 25-year-old associate named Logan Carlin was filmed throwing a firebomb into a Leith beauty salon connected to Richardson's partner. Carlin is now serving a sentence of more than 7 years for his involvement.
Now, Mr Carlin, you've pleaded guilty, as you know, in this matter to 2 charges of willful fire-raising. You threw bottles filled with liquid accelerant into properties in Edinburgh and set fire to them both.
The violence quickly escalated, pulling in wider networks across Glasgow and Edinburgh. Families were targeted and properties were torched. But for all the arrests made in Scotland, the defining incident of this generational feud took place on the Costa del Sol. Last year, 2 prominent gangland figures, Eddie Lyons Jr. and Ross Monaghan, were assassinated in Spain. They were sitting inside a pub in Fuengirola watching the Champions League final when a masked gunman entered the premises and shot them both dead. Scottish police maintain that the Spanish shootings are distinct from the localised turf war being handled under Operation Portaledge. However, Spanish authorities held a press conference last year explicitly linking their prime suspect to the rival Daniel crime family. A 45-year-old man from Liverpool, Michael Riley, is currently in custody in Spain, accused of carrying out the double murder. According to our sources, this is the insurmountable barrier to any lasting peace. While localised disputes can occasionally be mediated, the targeted assassinations of high-ranking figures demand retaliation. The belief within the criminal fraternity is that it is simply a matter of time before those deaths are avenged. However, while the streets of the Central Belt are currently quieter, the conflict has not vanished. It has simply been relocated to cells and wings of Scotland's prison system. Graham Pearson, the former head of the Scottish Crime and Drug Enforcement Agency, has warned against complacency. He pointed out that while Encrochat busts and operations like Portaledge have severely damaged organised crime, the criminals themselves are still operating, some from within their prison cells. The jail system is currently dealing with around 600 inmates who have direct affiliations with serious organised crime groups. Gillian Walker, the governor of HMP Shotts, recently described the daily operational challenge of keeping warring factions apart, comparing it to constantly moving chess pieces. High-profile inmates are frequently transferred between facilities or placed in segregation to prevent targeted attacks. Despite these efforts, violence does regularly spill over. Barry Baghdad Harvey, a convicted gunman and once aspiring footballer, was relocated to HMP Addywell, where he formed an alliance with another high-profile crime boss. Shortly after, violence erupted on the wing, resulting in Harvey slashing a rival across the face. More concerning, perhaps, is the threat of systematic corruption. Earlier this year, the Prison Officers Association raised serious concern that a member of a crime gang had successfully infiltrated the service, securing employment as a prison warder at a facility housing multiple Gangland figures. The individual quietly resigned when internal suspicions were raised. It highlights the lengths these organisations will go to maintain control, even while incarcerated. This all comes amid undeniable shifts in the criminal landscape, and traditional safe havens for Scottish organised crimes are closing. Historically, senior figures would direct operations from places like the Costa del Sol or Dubai, utilising the distance and lack of extradition treaties to insulate themselves from Police Scotland. That is no longer the case. We've seen Stephen Jameson, a key associate of the notorious Jamie Iceman Stevenson, extradited from Dubai and sentenced to 6 years. John Gray, another prominent figure, was brought back from the Gulf state and convicted for his role in a £14 million narcotics operation. And most notably, Stephen Lyons, who had been based overseas for years, was arrested in Bali following a cross-border investigation. He was transported to the Netherlands and eventually extradited to Spain, where he's currently waiting trial over organised crime and money laundering charges. It seems the international net is tightening, and law enforcement is increasingly focused on the financial infrastructures that support these groups. So where does this leave the state of organised crime in Scotland? The official statistics show a downturn in violence, and the police deserve credit for the disruption caused by Operation Portaledge. The immediate hostilities have been paused, but the pause is not an end. The prisons are operating at maximum tension, warehousing hundreds of affiliated gang members, some of whom are already preparing to return to the streets after serving time. And the murders at Eddie Lyons Jr. and Ross Monaghan remain an open wound in a world where retaliation is viewed as mandatory. It looks, for all intents and purposes, that the gang war hasn't ended. It has just entered a new phase.